영국의 작은 마을 치핑크레콘에 일간신문 가제트가 배달되며 이야기가 시작됩니다. 어느 날 가제트에 살인을 예고합니다라는 제목의 문구와 함께 마을 사람들을 초대하는 광고가 실렸습니다.
A murder?
A murder is announced and will take place on Friday, October the 5th at Little Paddocks at 7 p.m.
It means a drink.
People don't announce murders. Marriages, yes, but not murders.
Some sort of party, I expect.
Murder, isn't it scrumptious?
What time did you say it was? 7?
Yes, at Little Paddocks.
I have a confirmation class.
살인 예고 장소로 지목된 리틀 패독스에 살고 있는 당사자들은 가제트에 실린 광고에 당황스러워합니다.
Julia?
그곳엔 레티샤 블랙록과 그녀의 조카 패트릭과 줄리아, 그녀의 친구 도라, 그리고 하숙을 하고 있는 필리파가 살고 있습니다.
It's obviously some sort of silly hoax. But why? It's obviously somebody's idea of humour. But it says today. At 7 o'clock this evening, half the village of Chipping Claycorn will be banging on the door agog with curiosity. Oh, Hannah, we shall need a bottle of sherry for this evening. I'm expecting visitors.
Hello.
Welcome to the scene of the crime. There is to be a murder in this room in about a quarter of an hour. Great fun, isn't it?
You don't really think anyone will come, do you?
I shouldn't think so.
Village people are very inquisitive, you know.
저녁 시간이 되자 호기심 많은 마을 사람들이 하나둘 도착합니다.
Good evening.
Good evening. Happened to be passing.
Miss Murgatroyd and Miss Hinchcliffe.
Evening.
And Mrs. Fettenham and the Master Slut.
Hello, everyone.
즐거운 마음으로 방문한 사람들이 다 모이고 드디어 7시가 되었습니다.
Yes, perhaps a cigarette.
순식간에 울린 총소리에 혼란에 빠지는 사람들.
Cleaning the cellar, and a man locked me in, and then I heard shooting.
You're bleeding.
Something grazed my ear.
Better take a closer look at the fellow.
그런데 의문의 남성이 죽은 채 발견됩니다.
Dead. Anyone know him?
Never seen him in my life.
Nor me.
It's that young man from the Spa Hotel at Meddenham Wells. The one who came asking you for money. He came here to kill you, Letty. He did. I know he
Take
did.
Bunny into the dining room and give her some brandy. Patrick, ring for the police.
살인 사건을 맡게 된 형사 크레독은 복면을 쓰고 총에 맞아 죽은 채 발견된 남자 로디 셔츠가 일하던 호텔로 찾아가 그에 대한 조사를 시작합니다.
Myrna Harris.
You were friendly with Rudy Schertz. I want you to help me find out.
Stuff's been going missing, you know, from rooms.
A diamond brooch, I think. Might not have been him.
You liked him.
Yeah. I wouldn't have gone out with him if I'd known he was a crook. But I'm still sorry he's dead.
You've checked the house, Fletcher.
No fingerprints, no signs of forced entry.
Why did the lights go out?
Drawing room and the hall seem to be on the same circuit, if you can organise for them to fuse at exactly 7 o'clock.
리틀 패독스에 온 크레독.
Tell me when you first saw Rudy Schertz.
Well, it was about 3 weeks ago. We had lunch at the hotel. He came over to our table and said that he was the son of the proprietor of the Hotel des Alpes in Montreux, where my sister and I stayed during the war. 10 days ago. He had some absurd story about his mother being dangerously ill and needing the money to get back to Switzerland.
You didn't give him any money.
Oh, certainly not.
Letty refused to give him the money, and he came here to kill her.
Tell me what happened.
The clock struck.
And then the lights went out.
The door opened.
And
There he was, a man with a revolver. And I thought, well, I mean, we all thought that it was just some silly joke. And then he said something.
Hands up or I shoot.
did you put your hands up?
Oh, yes. It seemed like part of the game.
Well, then there was the first shot. And then I felt the pain in my ear.
Where were you standing, Miss Blacklock?
By the table. I was reaching for the cigarette box.
And look, there are the bullet holes. He was trying to kill you.
Is Miss Bunner a relation of yours?
No, an old friend. Patrick and Julia. They call me Aunt Letty, but they're actually distant cousins.
목격자들을 만나기 시작하는 크레독.
If you really wanted to take a pot shot at Aunt Letty, I can think of 1,000 better ways of doing it. Stand behind a hedge anywhere around the village and do it. Bang, like that. Fill the room with all the friends and neighbours. Put that silly advertisement in the newspaper. It's all like a student rag.
And if you were planning a murder?
I'm a dispenser. I'd mix a lethal potion. Quick, clean, and quiet.
I just want to know your version of what happened last night.
가정부는 손님들을 맞이한 후 총소리가 울리기 전까지 부엌에만 있었다고 말합니다.
Am I too late for the sleuths?
Mr. Patrick Simmons.
Am I under suspicion?
Somebody must be.
Unless the fellow shot himself.
Peculiar way to commit suicide.
Equally peculiar way to commit murder.
Tell me about the hold-up.
The door opened and this man shone a torch on us and flourished a revolver and told us to put our hands up. I thought it was just fun. I'd been working all day, so I thought, bother it, I'm not putting my hands up. Thinking about it since it happened, he did it in a vague sort of way, just waved the torch about aimlessly as if he hadn't the faintest idea what he was there for.
리틀 페독스에 사는 사람들을 모두 만난 크레독은 마을 사람들에게도 찾아갑니다.
And he said, your money or your life.
He didn't say anything of the sort, Mother.
Do you remember who you were speaking to?
I was in the middle of the room, talking to Julia Simmons.
마을 사람들은 사건을 조금씩 다르게 기억했고 범인에 대한 의견도 제각각이었습니다.
Wonderful, Inspector. The way Archie knows exactly what happened.
Yes, Mrs. Easterbrook. Wonderful.
What can I tell you?
Anything you remember about the incident last night?
The torch was whirling around, dazzling everybody, and the shots were fired.
I remember that girl screaming and a voice saying, put them up, please.
Stick them up. And he certainly didn't say please.
I'm sorry I can't be more helpful. I get so confused. It's all such a blur.
When he fired the shots, I shut my eyes even tighter.
When did you open your eyes?
When I was quite sure that the bangs had stopped.
He held up the company assembled by placing an announcement in the local.
경찰은 죽은 루디 셔츠가 직접 신문 광고를 냈다는 것을 확인했고 경찰서장은 크레독에게 미스 마플을 만나볼 것을 권유합니다.
Thank you for letting me see those, Inspector.
크레독에게 사건 경위를 듣고 조언을 하는 미스 마플.
More coffee?
No, thank you.
Have you talked to her, Inspector?
Yes, I did.
Well, talk to her again, because I think there's more to come. She filches a little here and there. A petty thief likes to show off to the girls. Then suddenly he goes off with a revolver and holds up a whole room of people.
But we have witnesses to say that he did precisely that, pointed a gun at them.
But it was dark. How could they possibly have seen a gun? I mean, they thought they saw a gun. They heard shots. They heard him say, stick 'em up, or words to that effect.
Which means somebody else fired the shots.
Well, that's logical. The same person who persuaded Rudy Schatz to put the advertisement in the paper.
You're telling me to look for a Mr. X?
A Mr., Mrs. or Miss X, I should say. Some of the best murderers are women, especially in an English village.
You didn't tell me everything, did you, Mona? About Rudy Schatz.
미스 마플 말대로 미르나와 다시 대화를 한 크레독은 그녀에게 중요한 사실을 듣게 됩니다.
Somebody paid him to put the advertisement in the local paper and do the hold-up.
Yeah. He told me it was just a silly English joke and that he was going to enjoy laughing at their silly English faces. Be very funny, he said. Some joke.
As you suggested, somebody paid Rudy Schatz to place the advertisement and stage the hold-up.
크레독은 계속해서 미스 마플과 정보를
The
공유합니다.
story Rudy Schatz told you when he visited the house was a pack of lies. Wasn't the son of the proprietor of the Hotel des Alpes in Montreux.
Why pick on me? Why should he want to murder Letty?
He was paid to do that.
Somebody else wanted to have me murdered.
That is what the evidence
루디 셔츠를 고용한 누군가 블랙록을 죽이려 했다는 크레독.
came in this door and did his party piece. Anybody could have slipped out through the other door, stood behind him, and fired the shots at you, Miss Blacklock.
그리고 크레독은 블랙록에게 결정적인 사실들을 듣게 됩니다.
Patrick and Julia. I'm not worth murdering now, Inspector, but in a few weeks' time, I might be.
Why?
Because I shall be a very rich woman. Does the name Randall Girdler mean anything to you?
He was a financier. Died just before the war?
Well, until his death, I was his personal secretary. When he died, he left all his money in trust for his wife, Belle. But if she dies before me, I inherit.
A great deal of money.
Yes, a great deal of money.
You said you might very soon be a rich woman. Is Mrs. Girdler likely to die?
I gather it may now be only a matter of weeks.
Patrick and Julia are the beneficiaries in the event of your death.
Yes.
But if you die before Mrs. Girdler...
Bell and Randall had no children, so when he made his will, he nominated the offspring of his sister Sonia. I only know them as Pip and Emma.
Girdler's sister Sonia married some smooth-talking Greek called Stamfordus, and they lost contact with the Girdlers, except it's known that they had 2 children born in the early 1920s.
They'd now be...
25, 26.
The same age as Patrick and Julia.
So, Pip and Emma could be Patrick and Julia.
But I'll try and find out. A policeman asking questions is open to the gravest suspicion, but an old lady asking questions is just an old lady asking questions.
그녀의 조카 하몬 부인과 함께 리틀 페독스에 방문한 미스
It must
마플.
have seemed quite providential when the young man tripped himself up and shot himself. And I'm told there were bullet holes.
Right over here, Miss Marple.
It's a miracle Lottie wasn't killed.
I'd just gone for the cigarette box, then the lights went out.
What a delightful lamp.
Dresden. It's one of a pair. The other's in the spare room.
I'd forgotten about that. Tell you the truth, Miss Marple, I didn't remember these 2 existed until earlier this year. I had a letter from their mother saying they were going to be studying in this area.
And when did you last see my mother?
30 years ago.
I now know that Miss Blacklock had never seen Patrick and Julia in the flesh till they turned up on her doorstep.
다음 날 미스 마플은 카페에서 우연히 도라를 만나 대화를 나누게 됩니다.
Do sit here.
And what about the other person who I didn't see? The young woman who lives with you?
Philippa. We call her our lodger. She's Mrs. Hames, a widow. Her husband was killed in Sicily.
Have you known Miss Blacklock long?
We were at school together. Then we lost touch for years. And I wrote to her.
She was lonely, and you were lonely, and she asked you to move in with her.
자신이 리틀 페독스에 살게 된 사연을 이야기하던 도라는 사건 현장에 있던 램프 이야기를 다시 꺼냅니다.
The lamp on the table. I noticed that it was the shepherdess, and not the shepherd.
Coffee and gossip, Bunny?
Oh, won't you join?
No, thank you very much, but we are rather late. Goodbye, Miss Marple.
크레독은 블랙록에게 전 재산을 상속하게 될 코들러 부인을 찾아갑니다.
Mrs. Girdler's very much looking forward to your visit, Inspector. She's a dying woman. She's surviving on drugs and on her willpower.
Dear Miss Blacklock was not hurt by the attempt on her life.
A grazed ear.
You know about her family background. 2 sisters. The father, an old country doctor, and a tyrant. Letty rebelled, ran away to London, made herself into a chartered accountant. The other sister, Charlotte, was an invalid. When the old man died, Blackie left the firm to go and look after her sister, and she took her sister to Switzerland.
Tell me about your husband's sister.
Sonia? She married this chap, Stamfordus, a genuine crook, I've no doubt. We got a letter about 18 months after the wedding to say she'd had twins. We forgot about them.
But Mr. Girdler left his estate to the children in the event of Miss Blacklock predeceasing you. But you have no idea where they may be.
They may be dead. They may be anywhere. Maybe in Chipping Cleghorn.
Indeed they may.
어수선한 분위기지만 도라의 생일을 맞아 마을 사람들이 모였습니다.
Did you enjoy your party?
Oh, I did. But I got a dreadful headache. I think I'll take a couple of aspirin and lie down for a while. I seem to have mislaid the aspirin I bought in the village.
Take mine, Bunny dear. They're by my bed.
Thank you, Letty.
하지만 머리가 아파 아스피린을 맞고 잠들었던 도라는 싸늘한 시신으로 발견됩니다. 그녀는 누군가 독을 넣은 블랙록의 아스피린을 먹고 사망한 것이었고 독살 당할 뻔했지만 친구 도라의 희생으로 죽음을 피하게 된 블랙록은 시리에 빠집니다.
Oh, Aunt Jane, I'm sure you can't see properly.
Well, shouldn't there be a switch up here?
Oh, Delilah!
Oh, my dear.
Probably fused all the lights in here now, thanks to her. What a nuisance.
전선 이상의 합선된 램프를 본 미스 마플은 사건의 실마리를 찾게 됩니다.
With the assistance of a shepherdess. And I won't have a word said against that remarkable cat.
Well, anybody could have put the tablets in the aspirin bottle the day of Dora's party. We all went to the loo, didn't we?
두 번의 살인사건 현장에 모두 있었던 힌치크리프와 머가트로이드 두 사람은 그날의 일들을 되짚어보기 시작합니다.
Where were you?
I was behind the door. When it opened, it knocked my toe and hurt my corn.
Now come and stand behind the door.
그런데 창문 너머로 누군가 두 사람의 모습을 지켜보고 있었죠.
You're standing behind the torch. You see a series of faces.
I remember Mrs. Harmon sitting on the arm of the chair and Dora Bunner with her mouth open.
다른 사람들과 달리 손전등을 비추는 방향을 볼 수 있었던 머가트로이드는 조금씩 기억을 떠올리게 됩니다. 하지만 그때 전화를 받은 힌치크리프는 급히 외출을 하게 되었죠.
We'll carry on when I get back. Don't forget.
She wasn't there! She wasn't there!
갑자기 오는 비에 빨래를 걷던 머가트로이드는
Oh, do go in. You'll get wet.
살갑게 말을 걸었던 누군가에게 죽임을 당합니다. 그 시각 힌치크리프는 우산이 없는 미스 마플을 차에 태워주게 됩니다.
We'll go and see what that dog's up to. We must call the police.
사건의 실마리를 찾기 위해 힌치크리프와 대화를 나누는 미스 마플.
Just tell me what happened.
I was trying to work out by a process of elimination who could have slipped out into the hall that night. Murgatroyd could see better than anyone what was going on. As I was going to fetch the dog, she got all excited and started shouting out, she wasn't there.
She wasn't there.
그리고 리틀 패독스에서는 또다시 새로운 사실이 밝혀집니다.
Julia, this letter, it's from Julia Simmons. I thought you were Julia Simmons.
Caught in the act. Well, the fact of the matter is, Aunt Letty, it seemed like a bit of a lark.
Does that mean you really are Patrick Simmons?
Oh, yes, I really am Patrick.
I was christened Emma Jocelyn Stamfordis. I'm Sonia's daughter, Emma.
How did you two come together?
At a big party in London.
And what is the real Julia doing in Perth?
She's been working with a rep company. We knew Mother would have 7 fits, so we planned this lark. She'd go up to Scotland and get on with her acting.
And I'd come here, pretend to be Julia.
Also, we wanted to be together.
I worked with the French resistance. Came to England when the world had calmed down a little. Alone and penniless, but knowing there was money somewhere in the family. Then I met Patrick. Marvellous stroke of luck.
Where is Pip?
I truly have no idea. We were separated when we were 3 years old.
Is that the whole truth?
The whole truth is, I came here hoping for a small allowance from my family's money.
줄리아가 엠마였다는 사실이 밝혀졌고 그것을 들은 필리파가 엠마를 찾아옵니다.
Save it. But enough drama for one day. Which is a polite way of saying, leave me alone. I'm on your side, Emma. That's all.
Inspector Craddock has invited himself over.
그날 저녁 크레독의 요청으로 마을 사람들은 다시 리틀 패독스에 모이게 됩니다.
I don't have to explain why we're here. Today, Miss Amy Murgatroyd was murdered, very brutally, and there's every reason to believe she was murdered by somebody in this room. Before she died, Miss Murgatroyd made a vital statement about the killing of Rudy Schertz. Miss Murgatroyd was standing where I'm standing now when the unfortunate young man entered through this door. Miss Murgatroyd was standing here so she could see where the torch was shining. Only she could see who wasn't in the room at the time of the shooting.
I too saw everything.
갑자기 문을 열고 들어와 크레독의 말을 끊는 가정부.
I look through the keyhole and I see her with a gun in her hand. Miss Blacklock.
Me? You must be mad.
Thank you, my dear. Perhaps you could
크레독은 블랙록을 범인이라고 지목한 가정부를 돌려보내고 자신의 추리를 이어가지만 그의 예상과는 다른 사실이 밝혀집니다.
And you think that I'm Pip?
He isn't Pip. I'm Pip. Everybody assumed that Pip was a boy, but we were both girls.
We hadn't seen each other since our parents separated.
I knew there was money in the family. I found out where Miss Blacklock lived.
Well, then the letter arrived today, and truly that was the first moment we both realized who we were.
Will you excuse me, please?
블랙록은 갑자기 자리를 피하고 누군가 가정부를 공격합니다.
Watching you, Miss Blacklock.
Did I do it properly?
You were splendid.
I have to warn you, Letitia Blacklock.
Charlotte Blacklock, Sergeant.
범인은 블랙록이었고 미스 마플과 크레독은 사람들에게 모든 것을 설명합니다.
The lights went out. Miss Blacklock slipped out into the hall, fired the shots, killed Schertz, then slipped back into the room.
Then she nicked her ear with a pair of nail scissors. She poured water from the flowers onto the frayed flakes of the table lamp. Poor Dora Bunner noticed that the lamp had been changed.
Why start all the killing to begin with?
Because she had a guilty secret.
Once upon a time, there were two sisters, Charlotte and Letitia Blacklock.
Letitia Blacklock was a very successful professional woman, but Charlotte stayed at home. The thyroid gland known as goiter. However, just before the war, her father died, so she was able to go to Bern and have an operation. Letitia left her job with Girdler to look after Charlotte in Switzerland. After the operation, they both worked in the Red Cross during the war, and then, quite unexpectedly, Letitia died, and Charlotte knew that Letitia had quite a large sum of money to inherit, so she changed identities. She chose a very quiet, out-of-the-way village called Chipping Cleghorn and waited there for Belle Girdler to die.
Dora Bunner wrote to her out of the blue. She'd been an old school friend of both the sisters. Charlotte was pleased to hear from her and let her into the secret.
And very soon Charlotte realized that she'd made a terrible error of judgment.
Dora was unreliable. Rudy Schertz turned up, a much more serious threat. He'd worked at the clinic in Bern. I'm sure all he had in mind was a little petty blackmail, but he was a threat to Miss Blacklock's whole way of life.
I'm afraid it was that conversation with me in the Bluebird Cafe that Charlotte partially overheard that day that really sealed poor Dora's fate.
And Miss Murgatroyd?
Oh, no, she killed Miss Murgatroyd out of fear.
죽은 언니 레티샤 행세를 하며 살고 있던 샬롯은 그녀의 정체를 알고 협박한 루디 셔츠를 교묘하게 속여 죽인 뒤 자신이 피해자인 척 일을 꾸몄지만 계속되는 불안감에 죄 없는 두 사람까지 죽이게 된 것이었습니다. 모든 사실이 밝혀지고 평화를 찾은 지핑 크래콘을 보여주며 이야기가 마무리됩니다.
Why on earth did you want to turn off the dome?
I like the sound of it.
뉴질랜드에서 결혼한 신혼부부 그엔다와 자일스가 영국에 도착하며 이야기가 시작됩니다.
Giles, look! What? Just stop! That house!
Gwenda, what on earth would you do with a vast place like that?
Live in it! And the agents are in Dilmouth. See, I was right to come.
마음에 드는 집을 발견한 그엔다는 당장 집주인과 연락해 집을 구경합니다.
It's a lovely big room, Mrs. Hengrave, but you can't see the sea.
집을 마음에 들어하는 그웬다. 그런데 계단을 내려가던 그녀가 갑자기 경기를 일으킵니다.
It's like vertigo. This house isn't haunted, is it?
I never heard so.
But someone died here.
In a house of this age, there must have been some deaths.
하지만 결국 두 사람은 안 좋은 느낌을 뒤로한 채 집을 구매했고 그웬다는 전부터 이곳에서 일했던 코커 부인과 집을 정리합니다.
I'll do it now then. Oh, how silly of me. I always think there's a door through here.
자일스의 직장인 런던과는 거리가 있었지만 두 사람의 행복한 신혼생활이 시작됩니다.
Looks like you're going back to old times, miss. Come across the old steps, see? Just like you want them now. When someone planted over and covered them up.
You want a view here down to the lawn and the sea? To match this, a white background and bunches of red and blue flowers.
That door downstairs to the dining room you said you wanted. Well, red scrapes and plaster away. He said there's been a door there before.
I knew there was a door.
Common sense, really.
집을 수리하던 그웬다에게는 자꾸 의문스러운 일들이 일어납니다. 우연히도 그녀가 원하던 것들이 집의 과거 모습과 닮아 있었고 그녀가 골랐던 벽지도 과거의 벽지였죠. 정체모를 섬뜩함을 느낀 그녀는 방을 뛰쳐나왔다가 계단에서 다시 한번 기분 나쁜 환영을 보게 됩니다. 그러던 그때 전화가 걸려왔죠. 런던에 가 있는 자일스에게 걸려온 전화였고 그에게 다음날 그의 친구 레이몬드의 집으로 오라는 연락을 받게 됩니다.
Yes, I will.
그리고 다음날 레이몬드 부부와 그들의 숙모 미스 마플을 만나게 된 그웬다.
My mother died when I was born. We were living in India, so my father sent me out to New Zealand to live with relatives.
자신을 소개하고 인사를 나눈 그웬다는 저녁엔 모두와 함께 말피 공작 부인 연극을 보게 됩니다. 연극을 보다가 갑자기 소리를 지르며 충격에 빠진 그웬다. 결국 자일스가 그녀를 데리고 나갑니다.
I must apologize. Gwenda's very sorry, and so am I.
Well, I wonder. Well, I don't like to interfere, but do you think I might possibly speak to her?
That would be very kind. Yes, she'd like that.
Well, I think I'm going mad. I must be going mad. All those things that happened in the house, in Hillside, and then tonight.
연극을 보다가 계단에서 본 환영이 떠올랐다고 이야기하는 그웬다.
And I was there, on the stairs at Hillside, looking down through the banister, and I saw her lying there, her hair all golden, and her face. She was strangled. There was a man. I saw his hands. She was dead.
Who was dead?
Helen. Why did I say that? I don't know any Helen. You see, I'm mad.
Now, you say that several things about this house seem familiar. The easiest and most natural explanation is that you've seen them before.
But I've never been in England until 6 weeks ago. I must speak to Aunt Alison.
In New Zealand?
다음날 자일스는 그웬다가 어렸을 때 영국에 잠시 살았었다는 것을 알아냅니다.
It seems her father took her to England after her mother's death, and on the way over he met a young woman on the boat and married her in London. I gather she walked out on him quite soon. That's why Gwenda was sent to New Zealand.
There you are, my dear.
Good morning, Miss Marple. We've got to find out, of course, who was Helen? And was she really murdered?
I do advise you most strongly not to do that. I was thinking of Freddie Lovelace. He was dairyman at Home Farm, and his mother had apparently once won first prize for chrysanthemums. Oh, long before Freddie was born. And when she died, he tried to find the certificate to have it framed. It was a grave mistake.
Turned out she hadn't won?
Oh, no, my dear. It turned out she wasn't his mother.
옛 부동산 중개인을 만나 아버지에 대해 묻는 그웬다.
Now, what was his name?
Halliday.
That's right, my dear. Nice fella. St. Catherine's. Yes, that's what the place was called. He took St. Catherine's at 8 guineas a week. Didn't she run off with someone, that young girl, Halliday's wife?
So, the stepmother was young, and she had fair hair.
자일스는 그웬다 아버지의 혼인신고 정보를 알아냈습니다.
Calvin James Halliday to Helen Spenlove Kennedy.
But it can't have been her you saw. Galbraith said she went away.
How do we know? How do we know she went away?
헬렌이 새엄마 이름이었다는 것을 알게 된 그웬다는 외출을 나갔다가 우연히 미스 마플을 마주칩니다.
My doctor ordered me to the seaside for a change.
그동안 과거를 파헤치고 있었다고 말하며 미스 마플을 초대하는 그웬다.
No, we'll tell you everything. And you must come to afternoon tea and see the house.
신문에 헬렌을 찾는 광고를 냈던 두 사람은 한 남자에게서 연락을 받았습니다.
I've lost touch with her for many years. I should be glad to have news of her.
그는 헬렌의 사촌 오빠 닥터 케네디였죠.
You bought the house in Dilmouth, have you?
Yes. It's quite a strange coincidence. I hoped you could tell me all about it. My father and Helen. Well, everything.
Helen was coming back from India. She met your father on the boat. He'd lost his wife, fell in love with her, and she felt sorry for him. And there you are. It's hard to know how these things happen. They married in London, and then they came down to me. I was in practice in Dilmouth then. However, in less than a year, she ran away with someone else.
Who did she run away with?
Well, she didn't tell me. They often had people to stay with them. I always imagined it was one of them.
There wasn't a divorce then?
Helen didn't want a divorce. That's why I imagined, perhaps wrongly, it was a case of some married man.
그런데 헬렌이 해픈 여자였다고 말하는
She got
케네디.
involved early on with the most unsuitable young man, and I took care of that. And then she elected to go to India to marry Walter Fane, son of Dilmouth's leading solicitor. When she reached Bombay and saw him again, it was all off. And then, well, she met your father coming home. Do you know where she is at all? I'd like to get in touch with her again.
No, we don't know at all. That's one of the reasons we came to see you.
그리고 어딘가에서 신문 광고에 관심을 보이는 한 여자.
Anyone with a knowledge of Ellen Spenlove Halliday, née Kennedy, communicate with Messrs. Newman. Well, that's Mrs. Halliday I was in service with at Dilmouth. You think there's any money in it?
Whatever.
I take it you're still determined to find the sanatorium where your father died.
Yes, we are.
Your father wasn't physically ill. The sanatorium in question was a mental home.
You mean he was mad?
He had a very severe mental breakdown. He was suffering from delusional obsessions. He was under the impression that he'd strangled his wife.
하지만 케네디는 그웬다의 아버지가 살인을 저지르진 않았을 것이라고 말합니다. 헬렌이 사라진 후 그녀에게 편지를 받았기 때문이었죠.
And another about 6 months later.
그리고 헬렌이 사라진 날의 이야기를 하는 케네디.
Kelvin was waiting for me in my consulting room. He'd been there about a quarter of an hour. And when I came in, he looked up at me and he said, I've killed Helen. It's true. She's lying there, strangled. So I got the car out again and took him back to the house.
We went up to the bedroom.
The bedroom?
Yes, of course, that's where it happened. Of course, when we got in, there was nothing to stare. The whole thing was an hallucination. So I gave him a sedative and put him to bed in the dressing room. I found a note in a waste paper basket in here. Going away with the only man I've ever loved. I questioned the housemaid. I took her upstairs into Helen's room. We went through her things. She'd packed a suitcase and a bag before she went away. He went into the private mental home. And that's where he died.
Supposing he came in and found her writing the note. Suppose he saw Red, grabbed a hold of her, he got his hands around her throat, and that's what you saw. She passed out, he thought he'd killed her, rushed off to get Dr. Kennedy. Well, meantime, she recovers or her lover...
헬렌이 죽었다고 확신을 하는 그웬다. 그리고 그때 저택에 도착한 미스 마플.
Oh, what a beautiful spot. Well, I do so hope that you've settled in by now.
I wish now we'd taken your advice. But once you've started, you can't go back.
I don't see how we can go forward.
There's always the possibility of X.
X?
Someone who hasn't appeared yet, but whose presence behind the facts can be deduced.
두 사람은 아버지가 지냈던 요양병원에 방문합니다.
Remarkable obsession, believing he'd strangled his wife in a fit of jealous rage. The delusion itself wasn't untypical. And what was lacking was the accompanying evidence of psychotic symptoms. What I mean is, Mrs. Reed, he wasn't mad. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to complete his analysis. You knew, I suppose, he committed suicide. I'm sorry, I thought you'd been told.
Was he so unhappy?
Oh, no. It was guilt, not depression. He left this diary. Suppose you might like to have it. It's not especially important to the record, medically speaking.
What's true? I've written to James Kennedy. Let Helen come to see me, if she's alive. He says he doesn't know where she is, but I'm not deceived. He's a good fellow, and he knows I killed her. Because I always knew from the very first that there was someone else.
병원에서 돌아온 두 사람은 다시 미스
Have you
마플을
had any
만납니다.
response to your advertisement in the local newspaper?
No, not yet.
Not after 20 years of what one might call sleeping murder.
Well, it seems to me that we're looking for X. Someone who fell in love with your stepmother and strangled her in a fit of jealousy.
You see, there was the man she was going out to India to marry.
Oh, and then there was another man, someone she got mixed up with when she was very young. Most unsuitable, Dr. Kennedy said. So that's two.
I think we may infer a third. Well, she was going out to India to marry Walter Fane, and as soon as she got there, she changed her mind. Now, why?
She met someone else on the boat going out.
Exactly.
It's what my father said. I knew from the very first there was someone else. We've got to trace all her lovers and question them to find the guilty one.
헬렌과 인도에서 결혼하기로 했던 월터 페인을 찾아간 그웬다.
Helen Kennedy came out to India to marry me, but then she changed her mind. On the boat going home, she met your father.
Were you on leave from India or something like that?
No, I'd passed all my law exams, so I came back here to my father's firm. I've been here ever since.
그리고 미스 마플의 도움으로 요리사로 일했던 페저트도 만나게 된 두 사람.
It's the game Lily and I used to have with you. Lily was housemaid here, Lily Abbott.
그녀는 헬렌이 좋은 사람이었다고 말합니다.
Very fond of you, she was. Nothing more than a girl herself, really.
Do you have any idea who it was she went away with?
Well, sir, we had our suspicion.
Who was that?
Well, now, I don't just remember the name. They were staying at the Royal Clarence, him and his wife.
Summer visitors?
Or maybe both of them had known Mrs. Halliday before. Anyway, it was close enough to make people talk.
She was afraid of something, wasn't she?
Afraid?
Yes.
I remember Lily coming in one day. She'd been dusting the stairs. She'd heard the master and the mistress in the drawing room. I'm afraid of you. That's what Mrs. Halliday said. I've been afraid of you for a long time. You're not normal. Go away and leave me alone. Something of that kind. Well, the plain fact is, Lily left you alone that night and went off the pictures.
그날 밤 일을 떠올리는 페저트 부인.
Anything wrong, sir?
Oh, I was looking for Lily.
Oh, I do think Lily went upstairs. Oh. Gracious, Lily, where'd you spring from?
I just come down to get a glass of water for an aspirin. Is there anything I can do, sir?
I'd like you to come with me, Lily. We'd like you to look round her room. Thank you, Edith.
잠시 후 돌아온 릴리.
Dr. Kennedy took me up to her room. Wanted to know if she'd taken any clothes with her and what.
Whatever made him think of that?
Well, she's left a note. Gone off with someone. Well, it's not likely to be Mr. Sobersides Fane, for all he follows her around like a dog.
You think it's that colonel, then?
Unless it's our mystery man in the fleshy
그날 밤 릴리는 헬렌의 대화 내용이 떠올라 그녀가 살해당했을 거라 말합니다.
Just after you told me, I looked through the window and I seen the master coming down the hill with his golf clubs. So it wasn't him with the mistress in the drawing room.
Someone else.
이번에 두 사람은 로얄 클래런스에 묵으며 헬렌과 친하게 지냈다는 리차드 얼스킨을 찾아갑니다.
What a beautiful place. But we've actually just bought a house in Dilmouth.
Dilmouth?
Do you know it?
We spent a few weeks there.
Yes, we stayed at the Royal George. No, the Royal Clarence, wasn't it?
Did you see the way she was looking at me all
리차드에게 헬렌 이야기를 꺼내지 못한 채 나오게 된 그웬다는 다음날 다시 그를 찾아갑니다.
There's something I've got to know, and I think you're the only person who can tell me.
Oh, what was that?
I think you were once in love with my stepmother, Helen Kennedy. Were you?
Why did you want to know?
I want to know more about her. She left Dilmouth that summer and never came back. Didn't you know?
No, I didn't know that.
Everyone thinks she ran away with someone.
And you thought that was me? No such luck, I'm afraid. It all happened on the boat going out to India. Helen and I just fell hopelessly in love. Hopeless because she was going out to marry someone else. It was rather a desperate decision because she wasn't happy at home and wanted to get away. Hopeless for me too, of course, with a wife and 2 children. In fact, she didn't marry him. She went back home and met this other man. Your father, I suppose. 8 months later, my father died and I came into this place. My wife said she wanted a holiday while we were waiting to move into this house. So I said, what about Dilmouth?
You wanted to see Helen again.
So I thought. It was a mistake. Janet's a jealous woman.
헬렌이 실종되던 날 마지막 인사를 나눴다는 리차드.
Dear Dr. Kennedy, I hope you can help me about the enclosed. Do you think it means money or a reward? And I don't think, sir, she ever did because of what I saw out the window. I wouldn't like to do anything without seeing you because I never have been mixed up with the police and Mr. Kimball wouldn't like it.
릴리는 케네디에게 편지를 보냈고 그웬다의 집에 있던 미스 마플은 케네디를 만나게 됩니다.
I'm Dr. Kennedy.
Oh, how do you do? I'm so sorry, but I'm afraid Mr. and Mrs. Reed are away.
I have a letter here. Will interest them.
But that's all wonderful. We've heard from Lily.
This arrived this morning. It's your Home Office chap's report on the handwriting sample.
And he says the letter and Helen's list are in the same hand.
세 번째로 찾아간 남자는 헬렌과 만났다가 케네디에 의해 강제로 헤어졌다는 제키의 블릭입니다.
Helen Halliday.
I had a bit of fun with Helen, and that's all it was.
But you saw her again after she was married.
Maybe I did. A couple of times.
별다른 이야기를 듣지 못하고 나온 두 사람.
I think this is his.
It must be. The yellow peril.
The mystery man in the flashy car.
I wonder what Lily's going to tell us this afternoon at Dr. Kennedy's. Do you think she really knows?
약속 장소로 발걸음을 옮기던 릴리는 누군가를 마주칩니다.
You did give me a surprise. What are you doing here then?
Gave explicit directions. They were very simple. Only a few minutes' walk up the road. More likely she decided not to come at all. Perhaps her husband stepped in. I've been thinking a lot about her lately. Who could have killed her? She had no enemies. Here's a photograph. Maybe news.
전화를 받고 경찰서로 오게 된 세
Lily
사람.
Kimball's body was found by a passing holidaymaker in the woods near the railway lines at Matchings Hall.
Should have gone to Woodley Bolton. I said in my letter.
We found your letter in her handbag, Dr. Kennedy. Advised her to take the 3:30 train from Coombe Lee and to get out at Woodley Bolton. Most likely explanation is she agreed to meet somebody else.
Why are they digging in that spot?
Well, that was my idea. You remember when you first saw this house? You were struck by the fact that this window had no view to the sea. And then Foster found the old steps under the shrubs. But it seemed to me that somebody wanted to dig new steps, so they covered up the old ones.
It must have been my father. Who else could have done that?
Oh, I don't think we must jump to conclusions.
It was one of 3 people. Walter Fane, Erskine, or Jackie Affleck. And whoever it was murdered Lily this afternoon. Presumably the inspector is checking alibis.
Here's your tea.
Thank you, Mrs. Cocker. Could you put it there?
Excuse me, Mrs. Reed.
Miss Marple was right. She found what we were looking for.
What is it? I knew it.
It's all right, Mrs. Cocker.
Oh, my life.
충격받은 코커 부인을 병원으로 데려가는 케네디와 병원까지 동행하는 자일스.
We warned the hospital we're on our way.
그리고 사건 담당 경위를 만나 긴밀한 이야기를 나누는 미스 마플.
Hello, Gwenda.
How long will you be? About an hour. Then I'll get the dinner on.
All right, marvellous, thanks. Love you.
Hello?
Hello, Gwenny. Mrs. Cocker's going to be fine.
Yes, I know. Giles just phoned. Why have you come?
I wanted to see you, just as you were that night. A little girl standing on the stairs. I watched Helen come home. In those days, it was just across the road. She was with a man, Richard Erskine. I knew she was in love with him, planning to run away. And I should lose her.
It's you.
I didn't want to do her any harm. Just hold her close, tight, safe. Cover her face. Don't want to lose you, my dearest sister.
미스 마플의 활약으로 모든 사건의 범인인 케네디는 체포됩니다.
Of course, there were so many things that pointed to him. Dr. Kennedy didn't know that she was at the pictures that evening of the murder. He thought that she knew the truth and had sent him a blackmail letter.
케네디는 릴리가 자신을 협박한다고 생각해 그녀를 죽였습니다. 그는 릴리에게 일찍 기차를 타라고 편지를 보냈었고 그녀를 살해한 후 다른 시간이 쓰인 편지로 바꿔두었죠. 이미 죽은 헬렌에게 온 편지가 헬렌의 필적으로 감정된 이유는 헬렌의 편지와 필적 감정을 위해 제출된 헬렌의 필체 리스트 모두가 케네디가 쓴 것이었기 때문이었습니다.
Why didn't we think of that?
Because you believed what he told you.
We thought Helen was almost a nymphomaniac.
All she wanted was to get away.
그리고 헬렌은 남자를 밝혔던 것이 아니라 자신에게 집착을 보이던 케네디에게서 벗어나기 위해 결혼할 남자가 필요했던 것이었습니다. 헬렌과 결혼한 그웬다의 아버지는 케네디에게 아내를 잃고 케네디의 약물 투여와 속임수가 만든 죄책감으로 자신의 삶까지 잃게 되었던 것이었죠.
It was the play, you see. Cover her face. Those are words spoken by a brother who's just contrived his sister's death.
I hope she's really sleeping now.
이렇게 모든 과거가 밝혀지고 이야기가 마무리됩니다. 기차를 타고 런던에 도착한 미스 마플이 버트램 호텔로 향하고 막 공항에 도착한 베스 세즈윅이 차에 오르며 이야기가 시작됩니다. 미스 마플은 어렸을 때 머물렀던 호텔 버트램에 휴가를 보내러 왔습니다.
My name is Marple, and I think my nephew.
Of course. Welcome to Bertram's, Miss Marple.
버트램 호텔은 런던의 유서 깊은 고급 호텔입니다. 방을 안내받던 미스 마플은 아는 얼굴을 만납니다.
Canon Pennyfather.
What a pleasant surprise.
최근 건망증이 심해졌다는 페니파더 신부는 미스 마플의 옆방에 묵고 있었죠.
Elvira, my dear. Well. Did you have a good journey?
Yes, thank you.
데렉이란 남자가 공항으로 엘비라를 마중 나왔고 미스 마플은 호텔에 머물고 있는 지인 셀리나를 만나 대화를 나누게 됩니다. 셀리나는 많은 사람들을 알고 지내는 마당발입니다.
And are you still living at dear St. Mary Mead?
Oh, yes.
Such a sweet, simple village.
그때 베스가 나타납니다.
Bess Sedgwick, of all places.
Now that's what I call real donut.
Extraordinary girl. I've known her since she was a child. She ran off with one of the group.
셀리나는 런던의 유명 인사인 베스가 결혼을 여러 번 했었다고 이야기합니다.
Then she upped and offed with Johnny Sedgwick. I suppose that might have stuck if he hadn't broken his neck steeplechasing. I don't think she's ever married again. But there's always someone. She's the sort of woman who always needs a man.
그리고 최근 일어난 강도 사건에 대한 이야기도 꺼내는
You remember
셀리나.
that big bank robbery some while ago? Well, the police seem incapable of solving anything these days.
Do you still see my mother?
Occasionally.
Do you think she'll ever agree to see me?
I really couldn't say, Elvira.
In other words, no.
셀리나를 보고 인사를 하러 온 베스.
What on earth are you doing doing here?
Someone told me about their gorgeous donuts.
그런데 호텔에 누군가 들어오자 인사를 나누던 베스가 갑자기 자리를 피합니다. 호텔에 들어온 사람은 엘비라와 데렉이었죠. 데렉은 아버지를 여인 엘비라가 21살이 되기 전까지 상속받을 재산을 관리하고 있는 그녀의 신탁 관리인입니다.
Have I any money?
Yes, that is you will have when you're 21.
And you're the trustee?
Yes, along with Richard Edgerton.
엘비라와 데렉이 대화를 나눌 때 한 남자가 호텔로 들어옵니다.
Lady Sedgwick staying here?
Yes, as it happens.
I only wish to leave a note. Was just checking it was the right hotel. What is the telephone number here? 1129, isn't it?
No, 3925.
I got the swan it was Regent 1129.
Isn't he that racing driver? Johnny smashed himself up a couple of years ago. Fellow with the unpronounceable name.
Ladislaus Malinowski.
라디스라우스가 호텔을 떠나고 얼마 후
Could you get me Regent 1129? Hello, Ladislaus. It's me. Yes, you were wonderful. When can we meet? Oh, no, sooner than that, please. I'm dying to see you.
미스 마플은 우연히 베스의 방 앞을 지나가다가 베스와 데렉이 함께 있는 것을 보게 됩니다.
I've really no idea, Bess. I'd hate you to think. What harm could there be in your meeting now?
Same there always was. She needs protecting.
From what?
From me.
베스는 엘비라를 만나길 거부하고 데렉을 내보냅니다. 하지만 그녀의 본심은 냉정한 겉모습과는 달랐죠. 호텔의 TV방에 모여 TV를 보다가 베스가 나오는 방송을 보게 된 세 사람.
The team included one woman, the young Bess Sedgwick.
What a coincidence. She's staying here, you know.
Here, at Bertram's?
Yes. I knew her as a girl. Everything a woman isn't supposed to do.
Could I have my key, please? Just 1 minute.
자신의 어머니가 버트램 호텔에 있다는 것을 알게 된 엘비라는 투숙객 명단을 몰래 훔쳐보고 베스의 방으로 향합니다.
Come in.
I'm Elvira.
So he couldn't resist it.
Well, Uncle Derek didn't tell me. I found out myself.
What do you want?
To meet you.
So now you've met me.
Is that all you can say?
What else is there to say? It's no use pretending we're anything but strangers.
Why didn't you take me with you when you left?
Didn't want to be lumbered with a baby. Knew your father would see you were taken care of. I couldn't give you anything else. I'm not the maternal type. I'm sorry, but there it is. Elvira, you're much better off without me, honestly.
Not hungry?
Not awfully.
Oh, nothing the matter, is there?
I saw her last night.
Who?
You know.
Did you make yourself known to her?
Yes. But it was no good.
엘비라는 베스를 몰래 쫓아다닙니다. 호텔에 서재에 갔던 베스는 철없던 어린 시절의 연인 미키 고먼을 보게 됩니다.
Can't be.
I recognized you when you arrived yesterday. Well, well, little Bess.
Oh, don't use that revolting name.
I know all about your doing. Aren't my fish and chips wrapped in them more often than not? I've thought of writing to you, you know. I've not forgotten Ballygowlan.
What's that supposed to mean?
Just reminding you.
You start raking all that up and I'll shoot you for the rat you are.
Ooh, I do believe you would too.
Oh, I would.
조용히 서재에 있던 미스 마플은 베스와 고먼의 대화를 듣게 되었고 베스를 뒤쫓는 엘비라도 보게 됩니다.
Which reminds me, what the hell were you doing there yesterday?
Checking you'd arrived.
You had another reason for coming, didn't you?
베스는 라디스 라우스와 만나고 산책을 하던 미스 마플은 이번에도 우연히 그들을 보게 됩니다.
So everything's set?
Yes.
You've checked the weather forecast?
Of course.
셀리나와 식사를 하며 자신의 추측을 확인하는 미스 마플.
Did Bess Sedgwick have any children by Lord Coniston? A daughter? Yes. She must be quite grown up by now.
엘비라는 혼자 어디론가 향하고 페니파더 신부는 출장을 갔다가 다음날 돌아올 것이라며 방을 하루 비울 것이라 말합니다.
First thing the following morning.
Don't worry. We'll keep the room for you. The next booking isn't until Saturday.
See you at dinner, Jane.
셀리나와 시간을 보내던 미스 마플은 그녀들의 뒤에 있던 한 남자에게 일부러 뜨개질을 굴립니다.
Hello, me. Oh, thank you.
호텔 손님 받지 않은 그의 모습을 보고 그가 경찰일 것이라 예상했죠.
Well, you are a policeman, aren't you? Oh. Oh, I'm so sorry. Was it meant to be a secret?
I'm checking in for the flight to Lucerne.
Your ticket, please, sir, and your passport.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, sir. This seems to be the wrong ticket. It's the date, sir. This ticket is dated the 18th. Today is the 19th.
베스와 라디스 라우스는 가까운 사이였습니다. 미스 마플은 잠을 이루지 못하고 건망증 때문에 날짜를 착각했던 페니 파더는 호텔로 돌아옵니다. 그런데 방으로 돌아온 페니 파더는 누군가의 공격을 받게 되었고 다음날 미스 마플은 새로운 강도 소식을 듣게 됩니다.
There's been another robbery during the night. The Irish mail train.
Apparently they held it up and nabbed all the special mail bags while the passengers were asleep.
엘비라는 오늘도 어디론가 향합니다. 그녀는 대렉이 아닌 다른 신탁 관리인을 만나러 온 것이었죠.
I suppose, as one of my trustees, you'd have to agree to anything I did want.
Yes? Is there something then?
Not at the moment.
Then why are you here?
자신이 받게 될 재산이 얼마나 되는지 알게 된 엘비라.
So, I'm really quite rich.
You'll be very rich indeed when you're 21.
그런데 그녀는 자신이 죽으면 그 재산이 어떻게 되는지도 묻습니다.
It will go to Lady Sedgwick as your closest relative.
Close.
She's still your mother, Elvira.
미스 마플은 공원에 갔다가 작은 식당에 들립니다.
I can come up to town whenever you want.
We mustn't go taking stupid risks.
라디스 라우스와 만나고 있는 엘비라를 목격한 미스 마플.
If only we could be together all the time.
One day.
Promise.
I promise.
Oh, forgive me. Well, I wondered if I could have a word with you. Well, I do hope you won't think it presumptuous of me.
라디스 라우스가 바람둥이라고 생각한 미스 마플은 데렉에게 엘비라를 목격한 이야기를 꺼냈고 그것을 들은 데렉은 베스에게도 그 사실을 전달합니다.
Some well-meaning old biddy downstairs saw them in the park together a couple of days ago. You're not going to like this, Bess.
Good afternoon, madam. Detective Inspector Campbell. And this is my assistant. We'd like to talk to you about Canon Pennyfather.
I do hope it won't get into the Sunday papers that he's missing, that is, or at any rate, that they won't mention Bertram.
페니파더의 행방이 며칠째 묘연하자 경찰서엔 실종 신고가 들어왔고 경찰은 버트램 호텔을 조사하기 시작합니다.
Absolutely certain there was no message from him.
Positive.
Good afternoon, Miss Marple.
Of course, you see, I realized on Wednesday evening there must have been a muddle. I thought perhaps that he might have missed his plane. He's coming back here.
We came back.
미스 마플은 페니파더가 없어진 날 그를 목격했다고 말합니다.
Now, I heard footsteps in the corridor, and there was Canon Pennyfather walking towards the stairs with his outdoor coat on.
라디스 라우스를 찾아간 베스.
So I've seen the girl a few times. When she mentioned she was your daughter, I...
You thought you'd play her alone. From now on you leave her alone, do you understand, Lousy?
And if I don't? Oh no, Bess. We need each other too much.
그런데 실종됐던 페니파더가 외딴 마을에서 발견됩니다.
Then what makes you think that you were knocked down?
How else could I be lying in the road? With your BOAC bag.
And you've no idea how you came to be in the area of Milton St. John?
Never heard of the blessed place.
What was the last thing that you do recall?
I remember taking a taxi to the air terminal.
And after that?
Not a sausage.
호텔에 잠복해 있던 자신의 정체를 알아본 미스 마플의 명석함을 알게 된 경찰 프레드는 페니파더를 만난 뒤 미스 마플의 조언을 듣기 위해 그녀를 만나러 왔습니다. 그런데 그때 총소리가 울렸죠. 총소리를 듣고 달려나간 프레드는 총에 맞아 쓰러져 있는 도어맨 고먼과 겁에 질려 있는 엘비라를 발견합니다.
God. They shot at me. If it hadn't been for him... Is he badly hurt?
Elvira?
Oh, Mother!
What's happened?
There's been an attempt on her life.
The Commissioner, he shoved me behind him and he's dead, Mother.
Mick Gorman?
Did you see whoever it was?
He rushed past me into the fog and he must have been hiding in the area below.
Inspector Campbell, sir! Inspector Campbell!
엘비라의 말대로 지하로에서 총 한 자루가 발견됩니다. 누군가 자신에게 총을 쐈고 자신을 보호하려던 고먼이 두 번째 총알에 맞았다는 엘비라.
Excuse me, sir. I thought you'd want to see this.
그런데 범행에 사용된 총기가 라디스 라우스의 총이라는 것이 밝혀집니다.
Ladislaus Malinowski.
No, I don't.
You do, of course, Lady Sedgwick.
Oh, Lord, yes. We've been chums for years.
총의 주인 라디슬라우스는 경찰 조사를 받게 됩니다.
You own a revolver, Mr. Malinowski?
I have a revolver and an automatic pistol. The pistol is in the pocket of my car, and the revolver in a drawer at my flat.
You're right about the revolver, but about this.
Where did you get this from?
It was used last night to shoot Michael Gorman, the commissioner.
This is ridiculous. Why should I kill that pathetic old war relic?
The bullet wasn't intended for him. It was intended for a young lady, Elvira Blake.
Why should I kill the girl that I'm going to marry? Any other suspects?
A mother, perhaps?
Bess, kill her own daughter. She gets enough money from her American ex.
She might have had an additional motive. Suppose her daughter was about to marry the man that she loved.
Why did you tell them you didn't know Ladislaus? He's no good, Elvira. He's using you.
You say that because you're jealous. I know about you and him.
I know what it's like. When I was your age, I thought I was in love with someone.
You don't know what it is to love someone the way I love him.
호텔로 돌아온 페니 파더는 미스 마플을 만납니다.
Before you go, I wonder, would you take part in a little experiment? 7, 8. Oh, thank you, Canon. That will do nicely.
미스 마플은 자신이 본 사람이 페니 파더가 아니라는 것을 알게 됐고 그 사람이 페니 파더를 공격했을 거라고 예상합니다.
What you saw was someone dressed up to look like you, and then someone hit you on the head.
자신이 착각했었다는 것을 알리려 프레드 경감을 찾아간 미스 마플은 그에게 엄청난 사실을 듣게 됩니다. 버틀의 모텔이 최근 강도 사건을 일으킨 범죄 집단의 본거지라는 것이었죠.
The person behind all this is a very complicated character.
And you know who it is?
At long last, I only wish I knew who'd murdered Michael Gorman.
Well, if I might make a suggestion, Chief Inspector, but I think you'll find the answer lies in a place called Ballygowan.
발리고란에 다녀온 프레드는 미스 마플과 함께 베스를 찾아갑니다.
How much did that business upset you?
I was sad, of course, but as I only knew the man to nod to, my concern was...
Sure. I think you knew him rather better than that. Wasn't he your husband?
All right, we were married once, but I hadn't seen him for 30 years.
So when you married Lord Coniston, you committed bigamy. And then Gorman turned up here and tried to blackmail you.
That is pure supposition.
Oh no, we have it on excellent authority.
The chairs in the writing room have very high backs.
She wasn't the only person that overheard your conversation.
Your daughter.
I must talk to her, explain.
Oh, you might reassure her that she wasn't the intended murder victim. And then the murderer shot the person he always wanted to shoot, Michael Gorman. Bertram's is a blackmailer's paradise.
Bertram's?
Well, it's the headquarters for one of the biggest crime syndicates we've ever known. The genuine and the phony all mixed up in a superb actor manager in hand.
버틀의 모텔은 직원들까지 범죄에 가담하고 있었고 겉모습이 화려했던 투숙객들도 범죄자가 대다수였으며 범죄 자금을 돈 세탁하는 범죄 집단의 본거지였습니다.
An affair in which your friend, Ladislaus Malinowski, was up to his neck, which Michael Gorman must have known, and which you know too.
How on earth should I know?
Because you're the brains behind it all.
A master criminal.
You've tried most things. Oh, it wasn't the money that tempted you. No, it was the excitement. The challenge. Where are you going?
변호사에게 전화하려다 돌연 태도를 바꾸는 베스.
Yes, I ran the show. But you're wrong about Ladislaus shooting Michael Gorman. He didn't, I did. I killed Michael Gorman. And now, catch me if you can.
자신의 범죄를 자백하고 도망치는 베스. 차를 타고 도주하던 그녀는 자전거 탄 남자를 피하려다 차를 전복시키고 맙니다. 그리고 그렇게 그녀는 세상을 떠났습니다.
Well, woman. At least you told the story first. Well, we'd better go and talk to the young lady.
Come in.
Now that you've had time to think, Elvira, is there anything you'd like to tell us?
No, nothing.
Oh, what a pretty sachet. I had one like this when I was your age. I kept my diary in it. A diary in which I used to write everything I did.
So what? So bloody what? Why shouldn't she take the blame? That's all she ever did for me. Please. And he does love me. I know he does.
라디슬라우스를 향한 사랑을 이야기하며 애걸하던 엘비라는 결국 경찰에 체포됩니다.
When did you suspect?
Oh, when I saw them together. It was the money, I suppose.
She feared Malinowski wouldn't marry her without it. When she found that her mother had married Gorman, she realised that the marriage to her father was illegal. She thought she wouldn't inherit. No money, no lover.
And I suppose her mother guessed.
And confessed to the murder so that her daughter could go free.
A remarkable woman.
딸의 살인을 덮어쓰려고 했던 베스는 최근 강도를 일으켰던 범죄 집단의 보스였고 라디슬라우스는 운반책이었습니다. 그리고 발리고라는 베스와 고먼이 결혼식을 올렸던 장소였죠. 미스 마플이 경찰의 조사가 시작된 버트램 호텔을 떠나며 이야기가 마무리됩니다. 캐리비안 해변의 한 고급 호텔에서 뜨개질을 하고 있는 미스 마플. 그녀는 조카가 휴가를 보내주어 여유로운 시간을 보내고 있습니다. 그리고 정갈한 차림으로 방을 나서는 한 남자, 그는 팔그레이브입니다. 나비를 채집하는 에드워드에게 다가가지만 환영받지 못하는 팔그레이브.
Is the old blighter gone yet? I remembered last night. I know I've seen him before. St. Kitts in 48.
휠체어를 탄 라피엘은 비서 에스터 그리고 잭슨과 함께 휴가를 보내고 있습니다.
Have you drafted us cables yet?
Yes, Mr. Raphael.
Send them.
자신의 과거 이야기를 하는 것을 좋아하는 팔그레이브는 미스 마플에게 다가가 대화를 시작합니다.
As long as we have time to do this, it's a dream.
Good Lord. Come on, we haven't got time.
뗏목에서 휴식을 취하다가 호텔로 돌아가는 두 사람. 그들은 이 호텔의 주인인 몰리 캔달과 팀 캔달입니다.
See that? Albino leopard. Cost me an eye, you know. Did I tell you about that? Well, as a matter of fact, it was the winter of 28.
팔그레이브의 수다에 지친 미스 마플.
I'm retired twice, you know.
Really? How interesting.
Once from the army, once from the colonial police. I'm not here just on holiday, you know. People have been getting away with things.
Shut up, man.
Lord, he started on one of his murder stories again.
라피엘은 잭슨과 에스터의 도움을 받아 방을 나섭니다.
Well, nothing much in that, you might say. Neurotic woman. Did herself in.
이번엔 경찰 시절 겪었던 살인사건 이야기를 하는 팔그레이브.
Husband utterly shattered by his wife's attempted suicide, and then, a couple of weeks later, she succeeded in doing herself in.
그는 여자가 자살한 사건이지만 남편이 범인이었을 것이라고 말합니다.
I managed to get hold of that photograph. Like to see the picture of a killer.
범인의 사진을 보여주겠다던 그는 사람들이 몰려오는 것을 보자 급하게 사진을 집어넣고 말을 돌립니다. 그러더니 팔그레이브는 다른 투숙객들에게 말을 겁니다. 하지만 사람들은 그를 달가워하지 않았죠. 그 자리에는 나비 수집가인 에드워드를 후원해주고 있는 그렉 다이슨, 그의 아내 럭키, 에드워드와 그의 부인 에블린이 있습니다. 저녁이 되자 식사를 위해 사람들이 하나둘 레스토랑으로 모여듭니다.
Thank you, Doc. Well, make sure you check the strength against the ones you had before, right? Sure is fine.
팔그레이브는 즐겁게 웃고 떠드는 그렉 일행에게 슬쩍 다가가지만 아무도 그를 받아주지 않습니다.
Mom, well, there we were. No ammunition.
Happily you survived.
결국 미스 마플을 찾아왔지만 그녀도 자리를 피합니다. 늦은 밤 에드워드는 아내 몰래 침실을 나서고 잠을 이루지 못한 미스 마플은 산책을 나왔다가 뗏목에 누군가 있는 것을 보게 됩니다. 그런데 다음날 아침 팔그레이브가 죽은 채 발견됩니다.
I lodged the death certificate with the authorities. Or if you could arrange to have his personal stuff to be taken over to Government House.
Molly, my dear. Is anything the matter?
It's horrid having a death here. Makes everyone depressed. He had high blood pressure, as a matter of fact. He probably forgot to take them. And he was drinking. For Tim and I mean. People might start saying it's the food. People do say things. You know what they're like. Put everything we've got into this place.
몰리는 호텔을 걱정하고 죽은 팔그레이브의 방을 정리하던 호텔 직원 빅토리아는 그곳에서 못 보던 약통을 보게 됩니다. 팔그레이브의 장례식에서 의사 그레임을 만난 미스 마플.
We were discussing nephews and nieces, the Major and and I happened to show him a picture of one of my nephews, and he never gave it back.
Yes, of course I looked for it for you. His personal effects are still at the hospital.
Thank you very much indeed.
My auntie would like to chat to you about England.
And so would I.
Would you like to see my village? Come to tea like.
Oh, I should like it very much, Victoria.
소박한 마을의 분위기가 그리웠던 미스 마플은 호텔 직원 빅토리아의 숙모집에 방문합니다. 그리고 호텔의 주인 몰리에 대한 이야기를 듣게 되었죠.
Between you and me, you know, Mrs. Kendall has something to prove.
To whom?
To her family.
귀족 집안에서 자란 몰리가 팀을 만나 결혼한 후 호텔을 구입해 경영을 시작했고 성공에 목을 메고 있다는 것을 알게 됩니다.
Have you chased out that real estate agent yet? Bring you down here to do a bit of work, not to lie all day in the sun.
Shall I go and do it now?
Oh no, you
비서 에스터에게 변덕을 부리고 미소를 짓는 라피엘.
Yes, Victoria, what is it?
빅토리아는 몰리에게 약병에 대한 이야기를 꺼냅니다.
Yes, what about him?
Those pills weren't never there beforehand, but they sure was there afterwards.
Victoria, what are you talking about?
Poor Major Palgrave was bitten by a snake. He had so many interesting stories.
Palgrave was a gold standing boy. He should have looked after himself properly.
Major Palgrave had high blood pressure.
How come he told me there was nothing wrong with him in that line?
Did he?
Yes, he did.
몰리는 팀에게 약병에 대해 말했고 그때 의사 그레임이 호텔을 방문합니다.
Victoria Johnson. Well, Victoria came to Molly with some cock and bull story about Palgrave's pills, and well, there may be something in it, so we thought we ought to tell you. Sounds rather idiotic, but, well, as far as I can make out, Victoria has got it into her head that somebody put poison into Major Palgrave's, tablet bottle. What was the name of the stuff?
Tetra-Wolfite. There would be. If he had high blood pressure, he'd be taking it regularly.
There were all sorts of things on his bathroom shelf, the normal things. But this one, she said, didn't appear on his shelf until the morning he was found dead.
I'm afraid I have bad news, Miss Marple. I can't find your snapshot.
Oh, dear me, yes, that is sad. Well, never mind. The other snaps were there, were they? The albino leopard and the buffalo.
Yes, they were. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, thank you for trying. No.
뗏목에 있는 럭키를 본 미스 마플은 그녀를 지그시 바라보는 에드워드를 목격합니다. 그리고 잠시 후 그레임을 찾아간 그녀는 자신이 사진에 대해 거짓말을 했다고 밝힙니다.
Why?
Well, Major Palgrave was about to show me a photograph, which he said was a picture of a murderer. And then something happened. The Major saw somebody. He hid the photograph, and he changed the subject. The next day, he died. And the snapshot disappeared.
미스 마플의 이야기를 들은 그레임은 네이피어 행정관에게 소개를 받아 웨스턴 경위를 찾아갑니다.
Morning, Inspector.
Morning. What can I do for you, gentlemen?
We want to dig up a body.
방에 있던 미스 마플은 뜨개질 바늘을 찾아준 라피엘의 비서 에스터와 대화를 나누게 됩니다.
And is it true that Greg Dyson was once married to Lucky's cousin?
When her cousin died, Greg married Lucky very soon afterwards. They were all in St. Kitts at the time.
Oh, how very interesting.
미스 마플은 그렉에 대한 소문을 확인했고 그가 팔그레이브가 경찰로 근무했던 세인트 키츠에서 첫 번째 부인을 잃었다는 사실을 알게 됩니다. 잠이 든 라피엘 몰래 어떤 가방을 꺼내드는 잭슨. 하지만 라피엘은 그것을 알고 있었고 잭슨이 훔쳐본 것은 라피엘의 유언장이었죠. 넋놓고 있는 몰리에게 다가가는 그렉.
I've got work to do.
What's the matter, darling?
Bloody Greg Dyson. Making a pass at me again. Oh, Ted, we were so happy. It was all such fun. Now I feel nothing's been right since that old Major died.
Oh, look, that'll all be sorted out. Look, don't you worry. Fix yourself a drink while I take this back. And have a sit down.
방으로 향하는 그렉에게는 빅토리아가 찾아왔습니다.
What do you want?
I bring you this, sir.
This is mine. Where'd you find it?
In the gentleman's room where they was put. I know. I saw.
What?
The gentleman which don't lie so easy in his grave.
빅토리아는 마치 협박하듯 그렉에게 약병을 돌려주고 떠나고 몰리는 에블린과 대화를 나누다 자신이 겪고 있는 문제를 이야기합니다.
Times I can't account for.
You mean when you can't remember what happened?
Yes. I'm in a different place from where I remember. Sometimes I've changed my clothes. People tell me I've said things and I don't remember saying them.
Molly, you must talk to someone.
No. Good gracious. It's getting frightfully late.
자신의 상태가 좋지 않음을 알고 있지만 호텔 일에 열의를 다하는 몰리.
Come on. Oh, yes.
Hello, where are you off to?
I'm going for a breath of air. I'm off duty now.
그렉과 럭키는 춤을 추며 시간을 보내고 힐링던 부부 사이엔 냉담한 대화가 오갑니다.
I was never in love with her.
I know that. That's what makes it so despicable.
How was your meal?
As usual, thanks, Tim.
Have you seen Molly at all?
She went for a usual stroll, I think. Shall I go and find her for you?
I'll go and find her.
Edward's a bit explosive tonight.
Because we're out here on Greg's money, he feels guilty if he isn't always working at field drawings or notes or something.
Molly!
몰리를 찾는 에드워드. 그리고 칼을 쥔 채 떨고 있는 몰리.
Something's happened.
Excuse me, please.
빅토리아가 살해됐고 그녀의 죽음을 안타까워하던 미스 마플은 라피엘로부터 다음날 만나자는 제안을 받게 됩니다.
You've got a line on all this, haven't you?
Yes,
First thing in the morning, then.
very well.
Good.
경찰의 조사가 시작됩니다.
So after Victoria gave you back the bottle of pills, you returned to your cottage to change, and your wife were there together until you went over to dinner.
That is 100% correct.
Tell me, Mr. Dyson, why do you think Victoria bothered to give you back that pill bottle personally?
Like she thought I might give her some money.
Why?
Probably thought I might be worried about them being found in a dead man's room.
약속대로 라피엘을 찾아가는 미스 마플.
You think Major Palgrave was done in, don't you? That's what the police fear. They've had him dug up. Don't you want to know why?
Yes, indeed.
The bottle of tablets found in his room, blood pressure tablets, wasn't his.
But whose were they?
Dyson's.
네이피어 행정관과 친분이 있어 사건에 대해 전해들은 라피엘은 미스 마플과 대화를 나눕니다.
Why would anybody want to kill a boring old fool like Palgrave?
Because the day before he died, he thought he'd identified a murderer. Here, in the hotel. The point is, Major Palgrave was on my left. Whoever he saw over my right shoulder. Then he looked up and saw the same face coming towards him. If another murder was planned, then the Major might have been a disastrous nuisance.
Right, let's not waste time. Who are we looking at? My fellow Jackson, Greg Dyson, and this bloke, Edward Hillingdon.
It might not be a him, it might be a her. Nagging memory that at one point he referred to Lucretia Borgia, whom I presume he realized was female.
Did he ever tell you one about a murderer?
Well, yes, he did. He did talk a lot about Lucretia Borgia and poison being a woman's weapon. Rather a lot of cliches like that.
에드워드를 부른 웨스턴은 과거 이야기를 묻습니다.
St. Kitts or Nevis, Mr. Hillingdon?
Oh, yes.
In the company of Mr. Dyson and his wife?
That's right.
Mr. Dyson's first wife who died, or his present wife?
Suppose when we first went there, Mary been still alive.
What did the first Mrs. Dyson die of?
Cancer.
You're sure of that?
Yes, of course. What do you mean?
Just my curiosity. Oh, by the way, Mr. Hillingdon, how long after Mrs. Dyson's death did Mr. Dyson marry his present wife?
Some months.
Some months. Thank you.
He asked me about some kids.
Well, he asked you about Mary's death, did he?
Yes.
At least he didn't ask you about Lucky.
You've known all about it from the start, haven't you?
Of course. I thought a home for the boys was more important than my feelings on the subject.
What about Greg?
He knows, even if he pretends he doesn't.
어떤 비밀을 가지고 있는 듯한 힐링던 부부. 웨스턴은 그레햄과 함께 몰리를 찾아갑니다.
I think I knew she was dead, because when I tried to lift her, she wasn't quite warm enough. I couldn't lift her. So I put my arms underneath her. I remember being surprised at feeling something so hard. It was the knife. I was lifting her on the knife that was sticking in her. And then it came out. I don't remember anything else. Everybody will be booking out. They'll say it's the food. Talk to Graham. You will tell everyone it's not our fault, won't you?
몰리는 여전히 호텔 걱정에 사로잡혀 있고 그녀를 만난 뒤 웨스턴은 감식반을 찾아갑니다.
And what about Major Palgrave?
Yes, the old chap was poisoned all right. Yet it would have looked just like excessive alcohol and cardiac infarction.
팔그레이브가 어떤 살인의 진실을 알았기 때문에 살해당했다고 생각한 웨스턴은 그것이 그렉 부부의 과거와 연관됐을 거라고 의심합니다.
Didn't die of natural causes.
What is this? Some kind of threat?
I don't make threats, Mrs. Dyson.
Her liver and kidneys were going. She weighed about 80 pounds. She looked peaceful for the few hours before she went.
웨스턴의 말을 부인했던 럭키는 에드워드를 찾아갑니다.
What have you been saying to them? They've been grilling me as if I'd murdered Mary.
Perhaps they realized it had to be the truth. You did kill her after all. You lied to me. You tricked me. You got me to forge the signature on the prescription.
Mary was in pain, for God's sake.
Those drugs killed her.
Yes.
I helped you to administer them. You made me do that.
Yeah, I wanted her to die.
사실 병을 앓고 있던 그렉의 첫째 부인을 죽인 것은 럭키였고 어쩌다 보니 에드워드는 범행에 공조한 셈이 되었습니다.
Why do you think Greg's been subsidizing you all these years? Because I told him to. I knew you didn't love me and I've hated you for it. I knew you wouldn't leave Evelyn, so I had to think of some way to keep you.
방으로 돌아오다 그들의 대화를 듣게 된 에블린.
You implicate me in Mary's death. You estrange me from Evelyn.
I've done everything for you. You're not gonna leave me.
그들의 대화를 모두 들었지만 모른 척 자리를 피합니다. 라피엘을 만난 웨스턴은 그에게 미스 마플에 대한 이야기를 들었고 그녀를 찾아가 도움을 받기로 합니다.
I'm very pleased to meet you, ma'am.
Molly has overdosed herself with sleeping tablets, but I don't think she intended to kill herself. Why not? She didn't take nearly enough. I'm not an expert, but it sounds to me as if she's in the early stages of a paranoid psychosis.
A persecution mania.
It's your last day here, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Well, have you found out who the murderer is yet?
Perfectly clear in many ways who it is, and also quite impossible. I need some information, I'm afraid. You'll find it personal, but it is urgent, and I apologize. Well, I need to know the financial arrangement that you've made in the event of your death relating to Esther Walters and Mr. Jackson. But this is most perplexing. What you're saying, in effect, is that neither of them will benefit by your death.
I want them interested in seeing that I live to be 100.
I see.
Go and have a shower. See you at dinner.
이제 럭키와 에드워드는 틈만 나면 불륜을 저지릅니다. 하지만 그 모습을 그렉이 보게 되었죠.
Seems to have hit a streak.
Night.
Hadn't you better go and work?
No.
She'll be disappointed. I lived with this a long time for the boy's
모든
sake.
사실을 알고도 자식들의 뒷바라지를 위해 부부관계를 유지하고 있던 에블린. 방으로 향하던 미스 마플은 그렉을 마주칩니다.
Oh, you startled me.
Sorry, ma'am. Didn't mean to frighten you.
Good night.
누군가 뗏목에 오르고 미스 마플의 방에도 누군가 도착합니다.
Mr. Jackson.
Mrs. Kendall's gone missing.
Molly.
It's all right. People are out looking for her now. One more thing. I overheard your conversation with Mr. Raphael this afternoon. He didn't tell you the truth. I've read his will, do you see? He's left Esther Walters £55,000.
Are you sure?
Oh, yes.
Have you told anybody about this?
Yes, I told Esther. I reckon she had a right to know.
Why did Mr. Raphael lie to me?
He doesn't trust anybody, not even Esther.
Why are you telling me?
Sounded as if it was important. It sounded as if it mattered somehow.
몰리를 찾기 위해 나온 미스 마플. 그런데 그때 해안가에서 시체 하나가 발견됩니다. 죽은 사람은 사라진 몰리가 아닌 럭키였죠.
What's going on?
Well, there's no time to lose. Heaven knows when the police will get here. I should like Jackson with me, and I should like to be sure that he does exactly what I tell him.
What do you need him for?
To prevent another murder.
에스터는 미스 마플의 뒤를 쫓고 몰리는 어딘가를 헤매고 있습니다.
I've got something to tell you. I told somebody else about Esther's legacy.
I thought you had.
Tim, darling?
I must have dozed off. Where have you been, darling?
I didn't come swimming.
How couldn't, honey?
There was someone swimming there already. And I didn't want to disturb them.
불안해하는 몰리에게 마실 걸 건네준 팀은 갑자기 나타난 잭슨에게 제압을 당합니다.
He's a murderer.
I'll stand by you. Has that silly child you married been lying?
Shut up, you damn bitch! Shut your bitch!
그렇게 팀이 범인으로 밝혀집니다. 라피엘과 웨스턴을 만나 자초지종을 설명하는 미스 마플.
Major Palgrave had a false eye, a dark eye, towards Tim Kendall and Molly, who were doing their accounts. Victoria must have seen him in Major Palgrave's cottage that night.
팀은 수영을 하자고 몰리를 부른 뒤 그녀를 살해할
Tim
계획이었습니다.
Kendall didn't realize that the raft was a place of assignation for Lucky and Edward Hillingdon. Lucky went there, wearing a similar costume as Molly used. Once he'd attacked her, he had to go on. Molly arrived to find Lucky floating there, dead. Plunged her into that hysteria which her husband had cultivated in her. He had abused her with mind-changing drugs.
에스터가 라피엘에게 거액의 유산을 받게 될 것을 알게 된 팀은 그녀와 결혼하기 위해 몰리를 죽이려던 것이었습니다. 모든 사실을 밝힌 미스 마플이 집으로 돌아오며 이야기가 마무리됩니다. 미스 마플의 친구이자 추리소설을 좋아하는 돌리 벤트리는 그녀가 살던 대저택 고싱턴 홀을 팔고 그 앞에 작은 집으로 이사를 했습니다. 그리고 지금 고싱턴 홀에는 당대 최고의 여배우 마리나 그렉과 그녀의 남편이자 영화 감독인 제이슨 러드가 살고 있습니다. 또 그곳엔 천식으로 고생하는 비서 엘라 젤린스키와 마리나의 개인 주치 닥터 헤이독이 함께 지내고 있죠. 이사를 온 지 얼마 안 된 두 사람은 마을 사람들을 저택에 초대하기로 결정합니다. 몰래 마리나의 사진을 찍던 의문의 여성은 마을 교회에 들렸고 그곳에 있던 미스 마플은 마을에서 처음 보는 그녀를 눈여겨보게 됩니다.
Oh, that wretched Malcolm Coop. I agree. That bike of his oughtn't to be allowed. Oh, I say, look at your shoe. My Arthur will fix that for you.
서재에서 일을 하던 제이슨은 무언가를 발견하고 얼굴을 굳힙니다.
Excuse me, I'll get back to you.
비서 엘라는 제이슨에게 마음을 품고 있었고 제이슨은 그것을 몇 번이고 거부했었죠. 구두 굽이 부러졌던 미스 마플은 배드콕 부부의 집에서 그들의 도움을 받았고 마을에 이사온 마리나 그렉에 대한 이야기를 나누게 되었습니다.
I met Marina Gregg once. She's lovely, isn't she? She's not so young anymore, but she'll always be a wonderful actress. And where did you meet her? At the end of the war, at a St. John's ambulance due in Jersey. She came along to her on the very day. I went down with a temperature, and the doctor said I couldn't go. I got up, put on lots of makeup, and went along. She talked to me for quite some time. She gave me her autograph. I've never forgotten that day.
Never any holding, have I?
Quite.
다음날 집으로 놀러온 벤트리 부인과도 마리나 그렉에 대한 이야기를 나누게 된 미스
How many
마플.
husbands has she actually had?
5.
Oh, my dear.
The most promising was Isidore Wright. Now, that was rather serious and quiet. And she's half adopted a few strays. And then, after all that, it was born. Well, anyway, there was something terribly wrong with it. Drugs, alcohol.
큰 슬럼프를 겪었던 마리나는 자신의 복귀작인 이번 영화 촬영에 대해 불안해하고 있습니다.
He's very tough, he's very stubborn. We need this monster on our side, honey.
So he can forget Lola Brewster isn't in the film, playing my part?
사실 영화 제작자 아두익은 마리나가 하차할 경우 거액의 보험금을 받을 수 있었고 그 배역을 대체할 그의 아내 롤라도 있었죠.
He's waiting for me to crack up. Then he claims the insurance and puts her into it.
Believe me, Fenn does not want Lola in this film.
고싱턴 홀에서 축제가 열렸고 그곳에 놀러왔던 미스 마플은 벤트리 부부와
I
마주칩니다.
dare say I shall see Marina Gregg again.
저택의 안까지는 일부의 마을 사람들만 초대됐고 그곳엔 사진을 찍던 의문의 여성도 있었습니다. 마을 사람들을 친절히 맞이하는 마리나와 제이슨.
Here's Mrs. Badcock and Mrs. Badcock is the indefatigable secretary of the association.
Mrs. Babcock, how good of you to come.
You don't remember me. It was in Jersey, of all places in the world.
Yes, Jersey, of course.
You talked to me for about 15 minutes. And you even gave me your...
배드콕 부인의 끝나지 않는 얘기를 듣던 중 갑자기 얼굴이 경직된 마리나. 마리나를 만나서 신이 난 배드콕 부인은 평소에 마시지 않던 술까지 마시게 됩니다.
Gladys, the group in the corner need attention.
저택에서 서빙 일을 하고 있는 글래디스. 교회에서 봤던 의문의 여인을 보고 호기심이 생겨 그녀를 따라가는 미스 마플. 그런데 그동안 저택에서는 배드콕 부인이 갑자기 쓰러져 소란이 일어났습니다.
I want you to go and find Dr. Gilchrist. He's somewhere in the grounds.
의문의 여인이 변장을 하고 있었다는 것을 알게 된 미스 마플.
How bad is she? Bad? What do you mean bad? This woman's dead.
배드콕 부인은 세상을 떠났고 미스 마플도 신문을 통해 그 소식을 알게 됩니다. 자신의 집에서 사람이 죽자 충격을 받은 마리나.
There's been a phone call, sir.
What?
It's Miss Gregg. She can't make it.
What do you mean she can't make it?
I don't know, sir. It's,
She's still asleep. Did you ring the studio?
Yes.
Good. I'll talk to Hardwick later. Why did that goddamn female...
Lola, honey. Marina's not coming in today. Maybe she is cracking up. You said she would.
사건을 목격했던 벤트리 부인은 미스 마플을 찾아왔습니다.
Heather Badcock was being very tiresome. That I noticed that Marina Gregg wasn't doing her usual charm stuff. She was staring over the woman's shoulder. That I saw her face. Do you remember the Lady of Shalott? That's what she looked like. The mirror cracked from side to side. The doom has come upon me, cried the Lady of Shalott.
But what was beyond?
There's a rather good copy of something Renaissance on it. A Madonna and Child.
경찰의 조사가 시작되었고 크레독 경위가 사건을 맡게 됩니다. 그리고 크레독에게 조언을 하는
While
슬랙.
you're innocent, Mary Mead, I suggest you make contact with an old lady there. She's the sort of person who could help you on this case. Her name is Miss Jane Marple. I'm not pressurizing you, but I do advise you to interview her.
That's all right, sir. I was intending to. She's my aunt.
크레독은 먼저 배드콕 부인의 남편을 찾아갔고 그녀가 죽기 전의 상황들을 듣습니다.
Things were getting a bit crowded by then, and somebody jogged Heather's elbow and it got spilled. But Miss Gregg was ever so nice about it. Gave Heather a hanky to wipe her dress. Gave her a drink.
Marina Gregg handed over her own drink, did she?
Oh, yes.
Sir, the drink was Marina Gregg's, meant for her.
배드콕 부인이 마리나의 술을 마시고 죽었다는 것을 알게 된 크레독은 미스 마플을 찾아갑니다.
Do you think Mrs. Badcock was the intended victim?
You are remarkable. Well, as a matter of fact, Mrs. Badcock was given Marina Gregg's glass. And as far as we know, it was that which killed her.
My advice to you is to go and see Dolly Bantry at the lodge and ask her about the Lady of Shalott.
충격으로 휴식을 취하던 마리나는 촬영장으로 가기 위해 급하게 방을 나섭니다. 그리고 잠시 후 방으로 온 제이슨은 마리나가 사라진 방에서 그녀가 누군가로부터 협박 편지를 받았다는 것을 알게 됩니다. 제작자 아드윅은 전화를 한 통 받습니다.
Yeah, Fen. Do what? Talk to my lawyer.
아드윅은 쿨하게 전화를 끊어버리고 정원을 손보던 벤트리 부인은 비서 엘라가 자전거를 타고 나갔다 오는 모습을 보게 됩니다. 그리고 영화 촬영에 압박을 느끼던 마리나는 급하게 차를 몰고 나갑니다.
Jason, Marina's driven herself off to the studios.
I've just seen Marina driving off.
Yes, I know.
And then this line of Tennyson came into my head.
벤트리 부인을 만난 크레독은 사건 현장에 또 다른 목격자가 있었다는 것을 알게 됩니다.
Could there have been anyone else on the staircase?
No, I don't think so. Oh, heavens, how stupid of me. Of course there was the girl taking photographs.
차를 타고 떠나는 크레독을 마중 나왔다가 공중전화 박스를 보게 된 벤트리 부인. 고징턴 홀에 도착한 크레독.
Miss Gregg left for the studios, and Mr. Rudd followed her. She has no sense of direction, I'm afraid. Dr. Gilchrist is here. He's Miss Gregg's personal physician. He attended Mrs. Badcock, too.
I'm supposed to be the perfect secretary. Apart from an occasional attack of asthma, that photographer was an embarrassment. I mean, I don't know who she was.
어디론가 전화를 거는 벤트리 부인.
I've dialed the wrong number.
그녀가 전화를 걸었던 곳은 고징턴 홀이었죠.
Tell me about Marina Gregg. How has she reacted to all this? Is she fairly tough, would you say?
Marina Gregg, I'd say, embodies vulnerability.
길을 잃고 헤매이다 놀고 있는 아이들을 보고 짜증을 내는 마리나. 벤트리 부인은 미스 마플을 찾아가 비서 엘라에 대해 말합니다.
The phone box.
Yes, the only proper reason for Miss Zielinski to be used is if the phone up at Gossington Hall was out.
고싱턴홀에 전화가 고장났는지 확인하려고 전화를 걸었던 벤트리 부인.
So I rang it.
Well, yes.
Nothing wrong with it. What was the phone call that she had to make outside the house?
제이슨은 결국 마리나를 찾았습니다.
How did you find me?
I found you because I love you. I saw the note. And the one you threw away. Why didn't you tell me?
미스 마플은 벤트리 부인에게 마리나가 입양했던 고아들을 직접 키우지 않았다는 것을 듣게 됩니다.
Well, she sent them packing.
They were very well cared for.
The child would feel that dreadfully.
크레독을 따라 닥터 헤이독과 함께 영화 촬영장을 방문한 미스 마플.
Hi, Lola Brewster speaking.
아드윅이 받았던 것과 같은 내용의 전화를 받게 된 롤라.
What?
크레독은 제이슨을 찾아가 배드콕이 마시고 죽은 술이 원래 마리나 것이었다는 사실을 알려줍니다.
Look, why don't we talk about this in my office, huh? This way.
크레독에게 협박 편지를 보여주는 제이슨.
You should see these. You know, I thought that it was the work of some harmless crank.
When did she receive these?
I found one on the floor of her room this morning.
영화 촬영이 시작됐고 미스 마플은 그 모습을 지켜봅니다. 절망적 상황을 연기하는 마리나. 미스 마플은 그 연기의 원천이 그녀의 과거에서 비롯된 것이라는 것을 듣게 됩니다. 마리나는 정신 지체가 있는 아이를 낳았던 슬픔을 가지고 있었죠.
Where that child is now.
She never mentions the child.
미스 마플이 마리나와 인사를 나눌 때 전화 한 통이 걸려옵니다.
Excuse me for a few minutes.
다른 사람들과 마찬가지로 협박 전화를 받은 마리나.
Jay! They said they were going to kill me.
레이크 경관은 수소문 끝에 사진을 찍었던 여성 마곳을 찾았습니다.
Look, I'm getting fed up with this. I don't know who it is. I don't know why they're doing it.
마리나는 영화 촬영에 차질이 생길 것을 우려해 경찰에게 협조하지 않으려 했지만 결국 경찰 조사가 시작됩니다. 배드콕 부인이 죽은 날 고싱턴 홀에서 서빙 일을 했던 글래디스는 친구 체리를 찾아왔습니다.
Really funny how she spilled her drink. That Mrs. Badcock. I was there, see? I reckon she done it on purpose. Spilt it on purpose.
마리나와 제이슨은 아드윅과 롤라를 저녁 식사에 초대했습니다. 하지만 식사 중에 마리나의 불만이 폭발했죠.
I know you don't want me to play Elizabeth.
Do you think I'd have come this far if I didn't want you to play the part?
Why don't you just get rid of me and claim it, you cold-hearted bastard?
레이크는 마곳을 미스 마플의 집으로 데려왔습니다.
There. Is that what you wanted?
The curse has come upon me, cried the Lady of Shalott.
Mrs. Bantry's right. She's looking at something or someone.
Do you think it might have been you, my dear? I mean, do you still think of her as your mother?
천식 때문에 급하게 방으로 돌아와 호흡기를 흡입한 엘라는 갑작스러운 죽음을 맞이합니다.
Marina adopted us so that we could be props in a little play she'd written called Motherhood.
사진사 마곳은 오래전 마리나가 입양했던 고아 중 한 명이었습니다.
Marina Gregg always talks about you when she's interviewed.
She couldn't dump us publicly.
Why did you come down here?
For revenge. Humiliation. I wanted to expose her. I wanted to come up with a picture that said this woman is a cruel, manipulative bitch. But what I got was a picture of a woman who's frightened.
Ella?
엘라를 찾아갔던 제이슨이 죽은 그녀를 발견했고 경찰의 또 다른 살인사건 조사가 시작됩니다. 결국 슬랙도 현장에 합류하게 되었고 크레독은 그에게 엘라가 범인을 알아내 살해당했을 거라고 말합니다.
Zielinski used the telephone box outside the ground. She may well have used it for making her blackmail call.
I'll love you forever.
Thick and thin.
크레독은 엘라의 사망 시각에 저택에 있었던 사람들을 불렀습니다.
Where's Miss Gregg?
She's in bed. I advised her to stay there. She's in a great strain.
I'd be obliged if you'd fetch her.
I can't. She's asleep. She took a pill.
So you really can't remember?
It was 12 years ago, you know.
미스 마플은 죽은 배드콕 부인의 남편을 찾아가 배드콕 부인이 마리나를 만났던 그날에 대해 묻습니다.
Rather pretty name I seem to recall. Rubella. That was it. What is rubella?
German measles. German measles or rubella is extremely infectious, however, and actually dangerous to a certain group of people. Women in the first few months of pregnancy.
크레독과 면담을 하던 롤라는 자신도 협박 전화를 받았었다고 말합니다.
Phone. An anonymous call just this afternoon. Said they'd see me do it.
Did you recognize the voice?
Yeah, I think I did. I reckon it was that poor bitch lying dead upstairs.
Ella Salinsky.
That's her.
귀가를 하던 미스 마플에게는 글래디스와 체리가 찾아왔습니다.
Gladiator got something to tell you.
Now, what is it you have to tell me, Gladys?
At the party, up at the hall, I was serving. When that Mrs. Badcock spilled a drink, I reckon she'd done it on purpose.
But who, Gladys?
Marina Gregg.
마리나는 그녀가 임신 중이었을 때 독일홍역에 걸린 채 그녀를 찾아왔던 배드콕 부인에게 감염돼 정신지체아를 출산했습니다.
The woman who had destroyed her chance of happiness was standing in front of her, laughing and boasting of what she'd done. Marina Gregg wanted to kill her.
모든 사실을 밝히기 위해 고싱턴홀에 도착한 미스 마플은 엘라 살인 사건을 조사하기 시작한 슬랙을 만납니다.
Because, Superintendent, Marina Gregg poisoned Heather Badcock.
It's over.
마리나는 약물 과다 복용으로 영원한 잠에 들었습니다.
So who killed this Salinsky woman?
Marina Gregg killed her.
엘라에게 협박 전화를 받았던 마리나는 엘라의 호흡기에 독극물을 주입해 그녀를 살해했습니다. 그리고 사실 마리나가 받았던 협박 편지는 그녀가 누군가로부터 위협을 받고 있는 것처럼 보이게 한 그녀의 자작극이었죠.
Now, perhaps you'll excuse me.
Oh, yes, of course. And thank you, Miss Marple.
Not at all.
떠나기 전 제이슨을 찾아가 대화를 나누는 미스 마플.
You thought that was the thing to do. Better that she should die here than... Probably it was the only way. I'm sure that anything that was done from love.
집으로 돌아온 미스 마플이 테니스 넷이 마지막 구절을 읊으며 이야기가 마무리됩니다.
He said she has a lovely face. God in his mercy lend her grace, the Lady of Shalott.